I've come to the realization that I've been purposely putting off formally reviewing this game. Mind you, I did write a review close to launch that I ended up just throwing up on my Medium page. You could read it if you want, I'm not the most proud of it, but yeah, I've been sort of hesitant to do a full review since I've had this sort of underlying fear that my appreciation of this game was just a fluke. Of course, me calling it Game of the Year or calling it the best game ever made was a bit, but it did sort of add to this fear that maybe I was just caught up in the hype in the moment and I might not feel the same way despite playing it twice. However, since it's the spooky season, and I was out of ideas, I thought that I'd finally return to Ghostwire to make a full video review for this channel. And I gotta say, after spending about 9 or so hours in it, I still really like this fucking game. I don't love it as much as I did. Some of this stuff has not aged the best over the past year and a half, but on the whole, still pretty good. For those out of the loop, Ghostwire's elevator pitch is this guy in a Hanya mask turns everybody in Tokyo into spirits, releases these evil entities from hell known as visitors who are now roaming the city, and kidnaps the main character's sister to do some sort of evil ritual. All in like one evening. This man is a goblin. So Akito, who's been possessed by a recently deceased spirit named KK, which gives him powers, has to save his sister and stop the end of the world. If you can't tell, this is a very niche game. Everything about Ghostwire, from its narrative to the combat to even the open world itself, is not for everyone whatsoever. I still stand by my statement that I made in my original review near launch, that it's not for everybody but works really well for a select few. And I'd be fucking lying if I said that it didn't work for me. The concept itself for the story sounds intriguing, but what really sells it is the open world. Exploring this desolate city amidst the imagery of a rapture without the gift of an eternal afterlife. Instead, their souls are going to be devoured, which is fucking grim. By no means whatsoever is Ghostwire in the horror genre, but it has the vibes down. Stumbling on the yokai parade was always a highlight of my play sessions. Or running around the city and slowly having everything turn into Silent Hill, symbolizing that you're being chased by the Kuchisake Onna, which is so fucking creepy. I love it so much. Ghostwire has a few running themes throughout the entire game, one of which being commentary on Japanese contemporary society. But it's told in a way where even those outside of the culture can identify with it. The Rainwalkers represent salarymen who feel chained down by their jobs. The Paper Dolls represents women who are forced by societal standards to put on nice smiles and serve men. Both the teenage girls and boys represents the anxiety, fear, and expectations that come with being a teenager. The kids in Raincoats represents kids who are abused by adults without the ability to fight back. And that's just the contemporary stuff. There's a shit ton of stuff from Japanese folklore. Like the Kuchisake Onna, which is a legend whose story I will not recount because I feel like sleeping tonight. The side missions also have this same acknowledgement of just how shitty societal traditions and expectations can be. One of my favorites is hearing the CEO of a small company complaining about how all of his employees are leaving. And when you go check out his haunted office building, it's full of employees complaining about not being paid for overtime. They're having to deal with company hierarchy. Because in Japan, older equals better. It's not true, and it's super fucking dumb, but it is the way it is. It's again, severely niche to those who have an interest in this sort of thing. But I'm a slice of life fan. Everyday living and quote-unquote mundane things fascinate me. And that's one of the biggest places that Ghostwire really shines. Because the other running theme, which the entire game is centered on, is about accepting death and learning to let go. In the beginning of the game, Akito starts off by ignoring processing the trauma of his parents' death, and his arc is all about learning to accept that that's just a natural part of life. Hell, everyone's arc is. From KK to side characters like Rinko to the main villain Hanya, whose entire goal is to revive his family. All of them have to come to terms with their mistakes that they made in life, or simply learn to accept that life being finite is what makes it precious. Even Mari, Akito's sister, technically causes her own death by going back for her parents' ring in the house fire, which led to her being hospitalized in the first place, thus allowing her to get kidnapped by Hanya. Essentially, her refusing to let go of her parents caused her to fucking die. By the end of the game, in a sick case of irony, Akito comes to terms with letting go by losing everyone in his life that he has left, since both Mari and KK move on to the afterlife. It's an extremely bittersweet ending, since everyone in Tokyo gets to live thanks to these few people dying. But it's also fitting. Had KK not moved on, or had Mari survived, it kinda would have undone the game's entire message. The final scenes with Akito seeing his parents again, saying goodbye to Mari, and promising to complete KK's last wish fucked me up emotionally for a good week the first time I saw it. And the very last scene that Ghostwire leaves with you are the sounds of a bustling city, showing that, despite all the death and all the suffering, there is always a light at the end of the tunnel. It's a very simple story in terms of what actually happens, and I can totally understand if you didn't gel with it, but despite how short it really is, it's told really well. Death is a topic that this medium covers quite often, but rarely is it talked about and done in such a human way. I fucking love this game. Oh shit, I forgot it's a fucking game. Ghostwire overall plays fine, although some mechanics do feel a bit undercooked. I thought the combat was alright. It's basically shooting a gun out of your arm with each different element working as a different kind of weapon. Pistol, spread shot, explosive, you get what I'm saying. However, I could totally see why it still leaves something to be desired by many people, even after the very recent Spider's Threat update, which adds lots of new attacks and talisman to use. The overall focus is less on quick reaction times or really skill, and more so on item management and spatial awareness. My personal biggest gripe is that even with a lot of the upgrades, Akito feels very slow, which is a problem in boss fights I could never really tell when I was running. With the few bosses that there are in the game, they're all very short, and on normal they offer no challenge whatsoever. Hell, I just realized that I didn't even die my entire 8-hour playthrough. On my third fucking playthrough on normal, I still don't know what the game over screen looks like. What the fuck? The traversal is simplistic but serviceable. I will admit that part of the charm is running across rooftops and being able to look over this beautiful city. I do have some issues with the game, like the opening being far too restrictive and handholdy. The story also has very little replay value and doesn't work as much after a few times. But to be fair to Ghostwire and put all my cards on the table, this is only after replaying the game front to back 3 different times in less than 2 years, so take that as you will. However, the biggest complaint that I can levy against Ghostwire is that there's not enough. Not in terms of quantity, there's arguably way too much stuff in the game. There's over 200,000 spirits to save, which regardless of how accurate that number is, or being able to save them in increments of 100 to 300, is fucking ridiculous. No, what I mean is that there's not enough depth. All of the game's additional content works in a circle where you're constantly focused on collecting spirits. You clear Torii gates, so many Torii gates, giving you Kanashiro, allowing you to collect more spirits, which gives you more XP, allowing you to kill visitors more effectively, rinse and repeat. The first 2 times, this is a great gameplay loop that keeps you going. And credit to Tango, I put over 36 hours within like a week, so something must have worked. But this time around, the cracks began to show. Half of this campaign is just clearing random Torii gates, and while they have some variety, it's still the same activity. Like I mentioned earlier, there's side missions, but even those end in a reward of spirits and or XP. And the one that I mentioned earlier, only half of them are as good as that one. There are some outliers, like a mission where you purify a bathhouse that Akito's been to. Him and KK wonder if the place is going to open up again once everything goes back to normal, only for, once the mission is over, you to find a flyer showing that the place's sales have been dwindling each month. Short, sweet, bitter, I kinda love it. Or the one where a spirit can only pass on until he finishes taking his shit? I'm so mad that that made me laugh, but many boil down to find this yokai or fight these visitors. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that there needed to be wildly different stuff like a KK minigame or a fucking poker side quest. I don't want any of that. I've played my fair share of open world games that have random on-rails sections or spur-of-the-moment minigames. Not every game needs something to break up the pace. I don't need a palate cleanser. I came to Ghostwire to hunt down visitors and release spirits. That's what I want. However, what's there, while fun, feels like there could be more added to it. Alright, what else do I got? The music is insane. The title thing is stuck in my head nonstop whenever I play this game, and the ending theme is also great. There's vibrations in the DualSense when it rains. That's a very nice touch. Everyone wearing streetwear is kind of hilarious and amazing. Come on, I'm running dry. The escalators work. Not really detrimental to the overall game. Just a nice detail that I appreciated. I'm not fooling anybody. Now I guess I have to talk about it. To see a game focused on criticizing grueling work culture and societal expectations have its own creative director, Ikumi Nakamura, completely jumped ship in 2019, only 3 months after her E3 appearance and 3 years before the game would release, due to her experiences working on the project, is not just ironic, but fucking prophetic. In an interview with Game Informer, Nakamura stated that the stress of developer-publisher politics with Bethesda, and the fact that they had the final say over what went in the game, led her to completely leave Tango and eventually create her own studio Unseen, which, according to its announcement, seems to be a lot more centered on the creative side of game development. That's already a shitty situation enough as is. The biggest issue is that Ikumi Nakamura's name was delegated to a special thanks, something that most game devs don't even get when they leave projects. 3 years is a substantial amount of time in game development, and it makes me wonder what Nakamura's full vision for Ghostwire Tokyo would have been. Obviously, no discredit to Kenji Kimura, who took over directing duties for the duration of development. That's a fucking tongue twister. But even on my first time playing it, as much charm as this game has, you can feel that it wasn't fully fleshed out. That doesn't mean that it's not worth checking out at all. As a matter of fact, now that the price has gone down for that next gen $70, and has been not only ported to the Series consoles but is actively available on Game Pass, I suggest checking out Ghostwire this Halloween, with the caveat that you probably have tastes similar to my own. I would have played the Spider's Thread DLC, but that consists of an entirely new game mode, and I have another very big project that I have to work on, so that I'll probably get its own video at some point. I don't know, don't hold me to it. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to share it on Hinge.
How do you know if you're a lesbian?
Did you have a question?
No.
Don't be afraid to talk about burgers. Okay, I'll start. Even though my Jumbo Jack is just 99 cents, it's still a great burger. Big and juicy and hot, because we won't make it till you order it. That's where I'm coming from.